The non-surgical and surgical management of painful temporomandibular joint disorders has evolved over the centuries. Unfortunately, etiologic sophisms and often unproven mechanistic treatment philosophies still survive. Reviewing the history of the management of TMJ disorders not only addresses the complexity of the problem, but also demonstrates the importance of being aware of the prior pitfalls so that as the science of diagnosis and management unfold, we as clinicians and researchers do not continue to fall into or repeat the shortcomings of the past in the future. Writings dating from the ancient Egyptians, Hippocrates, Vesalius described reduction of the dislocated mandible. Thereafter, surgery dominated the earliest management of TMJ disorders. The earliest report involved the concept of internal derangement of the TMJ articular disc. This mechanical concept was first described relative to the TMJ disc in 1826 by Astley Past and Cooper. Then, in 1887, Thomas Annandale discussed internal derangement of the TMJ and reported the repair of a torn TMJ disc with horsehair in a woman with persistent TMJ pain. In subsequent decades, reports followed related to the use of discectomy in the management of displaced TMJ discs. However, inclusion and exclusion criteria, standards for successful outcomes, and follow-up were not reported. Mid-20th century, reports surfaced concerning the use of discectomy to manage the anteriorly dislocated TMJ disc associated with degenerative joint disease. In 1951, Ireland discussed the use of condylectomy to treat anterior dislocation of the disc, and in 1957, Henny and Baldridge presented a series of cases in which arthroplasty was used to treat painful TMJ dysfunction. Temporomandibular joint surgery lost popularity in the 1960s as clinicians turned to non-surgical options for the management of TMJ disorders. Surgery was relegated to clinical and radiographically obvious pathology, such as ankylosis and neoplasia. The move toward non-surgical management has been linked to another mechanically based theory. Costin resurrected the old notion that tooth loss resulted in posterior and superior displacement of the mandibular condyle with resultant impingement of the condyle on the auditory canal, causing pain in both the TMJ and the ear. This concept was anatomically discredited by Zischer and Zimmermann. With the discrediting of Costin's mandibular overclosure theory, hypotheses related to occlusal disharmony and malocclusion arose and became influential. These mechanically oriented, gnethological theories suggested that during mandibular closure occlusal interferences cause mandibular condyle displacement, leading to pressure on the highly innervated, vascular retrodiscal TMJ tissue, resulting in pain and bony degeneration due to loss of blood supply to joint structures. It has since been well documented that there is an absence of a disease-specific association between malocclusion and TMJ disorders. Therefore, presently there are no grounds for further hypothesizing the role of dental occlusion or malocclusion in the pathophysiology of TMJ disorders. Clinicians are encouraged to abandon this old gnethological paradigm. Schwartz was the first to demonstrate that masticatory muscle tension patterns could be seen in a majority of patients with TMJ pain tested. He related this muscle tension to emotional stress and suggested the term temporomandibular joint pain dysfunction syndrome. Then Laskin, based on extensive clinical and laboratory research, formulated the myofascial pain dysfunction syndrome theory, which, like Schwartz, stressed emotional rather than mechanical factors leading to masticatory muscle pain and TMJ dysfunction. Over the following decades, the field underwent many taxonomic and conceptual changes. Currently, the most popular theories regarding the non-surgical management of muscle-related TMJ pain are based on the biopsychosocial model, which involves a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors. As a result, domains related to orthopedic principles, neurophysiological aspects of pain, neuroanatomic regions of pain processing, molecular, genetic, and cellular pathophysiology of muscle and joints, and behavioral aspects of chronic pain are presently being investigated. In the early 1970s, despite the successful management of many muscle-related TMJ pain and dysfunction patients using the tenets of the biopsychosocial model, there remained a group of intractable chronic TMJ pain patients. Farrar and Wilkes rediscovered and resurrected the concept of internal derangement. They related chronic TMJ pain, headache, ear pain, and mandibular dysfunction, along with other craniofacial pains, to an uncoordinated function of the disc, condyle, articular eminence, and superior head of the lateral pterygoid muscle. Armed with this concept, Surgeons started managing chronic TMJ pain and dysfunction as internal derangement, which involved open TMJ surgery, disc repositioning, or discectomy. Arthroscopy, and later arthrocentesis, emerged as bridges between non-surgical and surgical management of TMJ internal derangement. Onishi and Murakami were the first to apply arthroscopying patients with internal derangement and arthrosis. Holmlund and Helsing, McCain and Sanders provided studies related to TMJ arthroscopic lysis and lavage. Yang and McCain developed arthroscopic TMJ disc repositioning procedures. TMJ arthroscopy and magnetic resonance imaging (MRI) provided much more detailed information about not only the disc, but also the pathobiology of TMJ disorders in general, as well as paving the way for minimally invasive TMJ arthrocentesis. In 1982, the United States Food and Drug Administration (FDA) authorized the sale of the Proplast Teflon interpositional TMJ implant and total TMJ implants by Vitech. After implantation with these devices, many patients presented with irreversible and life-altering signs and symptoms. Reports surfaced that both were causally related to the hard and soft tissue damage created by failure of the Proplast Teflon TMJ devices and the foreign body giant cell reaction that developed. Therefore, in January 1991, the FDA ordered Vitech to remove its implants from the market. Since Proplast Teflon caused so much bony destruction and consequent significant glenoid fossa architectural variation from the normal, it was extremely difficult to align properly and stabilize the available stock TMJ replacement device components to reconstruct those patients. This led to the development of a computer-assisted design, computer-assisted manufactured CAD/CAM custom patient-fitted total TMJ replacement device in 1989 to directly deal with these anatomical discrepancies and issues of device component and fixation long-term stability. In 1990, Mercuri and Techmedica developed a prospective multi-center CAD/CAM custom patient-fitted total TMJ replacement device clinical trials study. Using mechanical and clinical outcomes data from that publication, in 1999 the TMJ Concepts patient-fitted TMJ reconstruction prosthesis was FDA approved as safe and effective for implantation. From 1995 to 2005, a clinical trial was conducted by Zimmer Biomet using the stock Biomet microfixation Walter Lawrence total TMJ replacement system developed in consultation with Quinn. This device was FDA approved in 2005 for implantation. Long-term follow-up data for both these devices has demonstrated safety and effectiveness for the management of end-stage TMJ disease. Ellich reported that 15 countries have since developed, or are in the process of developing, 27 TMJ replacement systems. 21 are custom designed and some are 3D printed. The authors found that at publication all of the TMJ systems they found were not equal in terms of design, material composition, preclinical laboratory testing, manufacturing methods, regulatory status, and reporting of clinical outcomes. Those important elements varied widely among the emerging systems. All of these are important issues that must be addressed in the future to assure these emerging TMJ replacement devices are truly safe and effective. Pauly concluded that utilization of extended alloplastic TMJ and mandibular replacement in severe grades of craniofacial anomaly patients demonstrated consistently excellent functional and aesthetic results in a series of skeletally mature patients. Therefore, the authors felt that these devices offered the best solution for salvage of craniofacial anomaly patients who have had failed autogenous reconstructions. Hawkins demonstrated that 95% of experienced TMJ surgeons surveyed preferred alloplastic TMJ replacement to autogenous costochondral grafting because of fewer postoperative complications and more predictable outcomes. In light of increased utilization of extended alloplastic TMJ and mandibular replacements, to assure meaningful clinical outcomes reporting and analysis, Ellich had proposed a classification system. In conclusion, in the pursuit of understanding the etiology, pathophysiology and management of muscle-related extraarticular and joint pathology-related intraarticular TMJ disorders will be improved as long as both basic science and clinical researchers pursue scientific methodology and evidence-based management founded on well-documented orthopedic joint-related principles, rather than the sophisms and mechanical schemes of the past. Among the many questions future TMJ researchers and clinicians must ponder are: what part does a patient's genetic profile play in TMJ pain and dysfunction? Its etiology, pathophysiology, and management? Are there synovial biomarkers that are indicative of TMJ pathology? Will improved joint replacement device designs and materials improve their performance and longevity? The arrogance of success is to think that what you did yesterday will be sufficient for tomorrow. C. William Pollard.